You say sort of the motivation actually has to come through, in a sense, changing your behavior first. It's behavior
Look,
activation
motivation's
therapy.
complete fucking garbage
Mm.
because it's not there when you need it. Yeah, you're going to feel motivated if you listen to Dr. Hyman or Mel Robbins, but that's extrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
In terms of the intrinsic motivation that you need to motivate yourself, you're going to have to push yourself because you're not designed to like change. You're designed to stop yourself from changing. And that's the problem.
I find that it's if you can actually master your mind and get out of your own way and deal with this crazy inner dialogue that most of us have, that you can get free. And what I kind of figured out at 63 years old is that the purpose of life is to get your soul free. Kind of like, Joni Mitchell sang in that Woodstock song, let's get your soul free. And it's not easy because most of us don't learn how to do that. Just as we don't learn how to take care of our bodies, we don't learn how to take care of our minds. So we know maybe how to do exercise, but how do we do inner size?
Inner size. Is that a word you made up?
Kind of.
I think Dr. Hyman just discovered a word for his next book, the Inner Size Program.
Yeah.
The ultimate wellness solution. I can already see this. You talk a lot about how to heal from the neck down. And I agree with you. I personally have come to believe, after 54 years of torturing myself unnecessarily, in many cases, that it does begin with the neck down. That if you follow a lot of the protocols that you talk about, whether it is toning the vagus nerve, or it's getting your diet right, or it is resetting your hormones, or it's cold exposure, or the habits that settle you and free your soul. But you also have to develop habits around your own mind.
Yeah.
And that's an area where, like you and like everybody listening, I have struggled profoundly. And there are a couple key insights that have really helped me change the default setting that is in my mind. And so the way that I would get into this is that self-love is the goal. You talked about the fact that you've come to realize that it's really a journey, your adult life, of setting your soul free. And I look at it like it is a journey of coming back home to yourself and learning how to love yourself for exactly who you are and exactly who you aren't. And you have a opinion medically that our bodies have this intelligent design, and that our bodies have this intelligent design that if you have the proper inputs, your body can heal itself. Your body is designed to grow. It is designed to help you. It is designed to be vibrant. And I believe the same is true about your experience mentally. And that if you stop and think about the fact that when you are born into this world, you come into this world needing, of course, other human beings in order to survive. I mean, we as a species, we cannot just pop out like a deer and get up on our hind legs and start running around and figuring things out. We need human connection.
Yeah.
But at our core, when you think about the intelligent design of a human being, we are curious, we're loving, we are seeking connection, we are self-expressed. A baby, you as a baby, you would laugh, you'd smile, you would crawl towards a mirror if you saw your own reflection. You would crawl towards things that were interesting to you. You were not editing yourself. You were not questioning what people around you would think about you kind of jiggling your booty or smashing your face into a plate of spaghetti. At your core, you are a loving, curious, confident human being.
Yeah.
That's who you are. And that's why we miss feeling that way, because you can only miss something that you know.
Yeah.
And so what happens to all of us, and this is no fault, this is just part of the human journey, is that we now know, and you talk about this on your show, that part of your core memories and your imprint mentally, in terms of your mental patterns, happen between 0 and 5 when your brain is in a theta state and you are largely nonverbal, and your little brain is absorbing everything at hyper speed. And what it absorbs are the speaking patterns and the emotional patterns and the emotional tone of the household that you grew up in.
Ooh, that's a scary thought.
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And so by the time that you start to be able to attach words to your reality, you have adults correcting you, and you also have a biological demand, which is I need food. I need to be part of this family in order to survive. I need love. And so you start to figure out how to survive or thrive in the environment you grew up in.
Yeah.
And so these core coping skills start to develop. You don't even realize it's happening. These opinions that you have about yourself that are largely coming from other people.
Yeah.
So most of us did not receive the love that we needed in the way that we could really process it as love, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a function of abuse or trauma or any of this other stuff. There's this term that I love called parental mismatch.
Yeah.
Parental mismatch.
Yeah.
Your parents may have been absolutely awesome human beings, but when it comes to what you needed, there was a mismatch. And what happens in human design is that when you as a child don't get what you need, or you get yelled at, or something bad happens to you, which happens to everybody, we're not wired in a way to say, my parents are fucking screwed up. We're not wired that way.
You know what parents are?
What?
Parents are people who have kids.
Yes.
They have no training, no experience.
And they're just repeating
They're
the
trying to figure it
patterns that were repeated on them largely without even realizing it. And
Very
so
true.
if you get bullied at school, if you experience racism, if you experience some sort of abuse or neglect or emotional whatever in your home, you don't go, those people have a problem. You go, there must be something wrong with me. And that's where it begins, Dr. Hyman. And it happens to everybody, where you prioritize the need to fit in.
Or survive in any way in your family if it's screwed up, which most of our families are not perfect.
Yep. Or to keep the peace, or to not get hurt, or to please the people around you. You figure out how to adapt very quickly based on the environment that you're in. And for almost all of us, that means I got to put other people's expectations, other people's opinions about what's going on, everybody else's emotional reactions above what I need. Because remember who you are at your core. You are a loving, self-expressed, curious person who wants to connect with people and wants to share yourself. That's who you are at your core. And at some point during your childhood, it happens to all of us, we internalize a message that there's something wrong with who we are. And in order to fit in or survive or be accepted or get the love or the praise that we are seeking, we have to be somebody other than who we are. And that's where the mindset shit goes sideways. Because you start to actively tell yourself, I don't fit in there. That person's pissed at me. I got to be like this. There must be something wrong with me if nobody's asking me out on a date. My mom's always criticizing the way that I look. Why do I look different than other people? Why am I the only black kid in the class? Why am I like my family immigrated here and there's nobody else in it? And you start to see all the places that you're not a part of. And all of these things compound, and it traps us in a narrative in our own minds where we beat the shit out of ourselves. We pick apart the things that are wrong. We're constantly, relentlessly just focused on what we're not doing. Yeah. And it's a very dark place that most people live in.
Yeah, it's really true. I mean, and often people don't realize it. And, I thought I had my shit together.
When did you realize you didn't?
And I mean, I know over the years, I realized I have, needed work to do, because I understood that my family of origin, was problematic, that my stepfather was a rageaholic, that my father was sort of absent, abandoned us, that my mother was depressed. I mean, I had to navigate a very kind of unsafe environment and be a people pleaser and take care of broken people. And I mean, all these habits and patterns that, be around people who were failures and wanted to not be a failure. So I had all these things that were driving me unconsciously or consciously. But, when I really kind of woke up was when I realized that I struggled with love. I'd been married 3 times, divorced 3 times. And like, wait a minute, what is going on in there? In many areas of my life, I have success and things are great. And I have a great community and great friends and so much is great. But in this one area, I was like, why is this such a problem? And I really, until I took the time to investigate, I call it soul archaeology, to
Okay.
investigate what was going on and to unpack my inner dialogue and to write it down. I literally wrote down all the stupid shit my head was saying every minute.
What were you saying to yourself?
Oh my God, I'm embarrassed.
That's why I want you to say it. What is the stuff you were saying?
Wait, is this me interviewing you? Or you? Yeah. So basically, I had this belief that, I think that was underlying it, that I wasn't kind of worthy, that, I didn't really deserve to have love. And I had this sort of needy inner dialogue.
Yeah.
That was feeling a lack and scarcity, that I felt this emptiness and this hole that I was
Yeah.
trying to fill, and that I wasn't ever going to be able to fill it. And so
Yeah.
I was constantly doing that. And I realized it was because, and again, these the sort of sins of our fathers are visited upon their children, right? It's like my mother was the child of deaf parents, and she had to take care of them from a very early age, and she took care of them, and they were beautiful people and very loving. But, she thought that love was taking care of somebody broken. And then my mom was depressed, and she used me as her therapist as a little kid. And then I thought love was taking care of broken people, or, people pleasing and doing all these things that really weren't serving me.
Right.
And once I sort of began to realize that, I began to call in my, higher self, whatever that you want to call it is.
Yeah.
But there's some part of your, soul being that knows what the truth is.
Well, I think it's the part of you when you're born.
Yeah.
It's actually who you are.
But most of that is not what's running our inner dialogue.
Correct.
And so that was not running my inner dialogue. So I began to do this practice where I would write down all the stupid shit my head would say, and then I would write back to myself from my higher self.
Yes.
And it was really effective. I did this for months and months and months. And I was able to really unpack some of this sort of stuff. And once I kind of realized also what this wounding was as a kid and why I felt emptiness, and actually was in part because this movie called Coda, that was about this young girl who was hearing and grew up in a deaf family, just like my mother. And that just broke me open. And I was literally on the floor sobbing for days. And I got to release a lot of it. And then it kind of reset my nervous system. It was almost like a real reset. But I've sort of struggled with some of that. And so going through that process, I realized each of us has to be on our own journey. And each of us has to sort of look at where are the areas where we don't love ourselves. And I thought, oh, I love myself. I'm real good. I feel good about myself. I'm successful, blah, blah, blah. But the truth was there was a part that I really didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really fully accept and love myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was creating this kind of constant pattern of choosing the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
A friend said I had a broken picker. It wasn't the problem of the people I was with. It was me.
You had a broken pattern
Yeah.
of belief in your head.
Yeah.
And that made you feel broken.
Yeah.
And the good news is when you can identify what the broken pattern of thinking or behavior is, you can replace it with something else. See, the good news is at any moment in your life, you can decide who you want to become. It's never too early or too late to decide that you want to become a different you. You want to go back to who you truly are, a loving, curious, confident, connected, self-expressed person.
Yeah.
And what I want to just add to your story is that wasn't a lie you were telling yourself, because your experience was one where you did not get the love you needed as a child.
Yeah.
That happened.
That did.
That happened. And it was because of this mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody intentionally set out to damage you.
No, my parents are good people. They just were screwed up themselves.
Yes, but so I think one of the mistakes that we make when we start to do this work to reclaim our lives and to change our mindsets and to become a different version of ourselves is that we kind of shy away from telling the truth to ourselves, like that should happen. The reason why I believe that is because my lived experience was everybody else's needs came first. I did not get the love that I needed. And in order to even get the attention that I needed from the adults around me, I had to twist myself in knots. Like I literally had to forget about myself. And that was real.
Yeah.
Like my husband, for example, we've been married 26 years and have been in really awesome, intense therapy for the last 2 years. And one of the things that has come out of it is that Chris has a lot of trauma from his childhood.
Yeah.
Had an absent father, His mom was always working. He was a latchkey kid. He had no physical abuse.
Yeah.
But nobody was ever there.
Neglect is a form of abuse.
Yes. But but he is forever kind of, like they were great. Like we were all, but the truth is, no, they weren't.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
When you claim for real that you didn't get what you needed, and that created years, decades of an experience where that was your lived experience. But what you're talking about by writing that down, and writing it down is critical, because part of the issue is we try to change the default patterns of thinking that come from your lived experience.
Yeah.
So they may have been true in the past because of the way you got treated or what people said to you. That is your lived experience, just like trauma is your lived experience. When we don't really call that out for what it is, we unconsciously carry it forward.
Yeah.
And so when you start to write down, these are the crazy ass things that I think because this is how I fucking felt.
Yeah.
And based on my lived experience, this makes a lot of sense. But here's where consciousness, alignment, choice, the wake-up call, I call it, comes into play.
Yeah.
You get to choose if you want to keep thinking this shit moving forward. Now, when it comes to mindset, what is profoundly complicated about it, and what I got wrong for years, is that I thought that changing your mindset began with changing your thoughts. It does not. No. It does not. You change your mindset the same way you change the health of your body from the neck down, from the outside in. And let me give you what I'm talking about. So the act of writing things down, that is not doing the internal work of your thinking. That is getting that shit out of your head and in daylight and on paper and in the real world so you can look at it objectively. That is doing work outside of your mind. The second thing is everything that you talk about, Dr. Hyman, from especially the stuff related to nervous system regulation, cold exposure, warm baths at night, the 5 breaths that you talk about, learning how to tone your vagus nerves so that you flip off the fight or flight, which continues all of those thoughts from your past to spin on repeat. Your thinking has so much to do with your nervous system state that learning how to regulate your nervous system using all of the tools that Dr. Hyman or that I write about or all the amazing, put that shit into place, because a calm nervous system facilitates calm thinking.
Yeah.
And the third thing is,
I just want to stop you there because that's such an important point, is you can change your physiologic state with practices that don't involve your thinking, that change your mind.
Yes.
And change the way you feel and change your mood. And,
yes.
And that is such a powerful insight that most people have no idea about. People feel stuck in the state that they're in and they don't know there's a pattern break.
Yes.
For example, yesterday I was, I podcast all day preparing for my book, and I had one that I didn't record. And I was like, I didn't hit the record button. Long story. And I was like, "Rrr," and I was just tired. And my partner, fiance, she basically set the alarm stupid early and forgot to turn it off. And I didn't get enough sleep. So I was like feeling kind of a little bit fried. And so I could tell myself, my mind was just doing bad stuff. So I said, I'm going to meditate. So I meditated for 20 minutes and I have a steam shower. I put that on. Went in the steam, hot as it could be, for 20 minutes. Went in an ice bath because it's winter, very cold in the Berkshires, for like 2-3 minutes. And I got out of that and I literally felt completely different. My mood, my energy, my focus, my brain. So we have these doorways into our mind and our mood that are not internal, they're external. So if you could summarize the things that are the most powerful to help us come back to self-love and self-acceptance, which really is the key to everything in life. It's the key to healthy relationships. It's the key to being successful in life. It's the key to taking care of your own body, of eating the right thing, of exercising, everything you can think you want to do or want to get in your life. It kind of starts there.
I'm curious, Mel, what does success look like for you?
What does success look like for me? Success is standing in front of a mirror in my bathroom and seeing a person reflected back that I love and that I am proud to spend my life with.
When was the moment that you realized that was success for you? Has it been this gradual thing over time that you've looked at yourself in the mirror and said, I love myself for who I am? Or was there more of a catalyst for you?
Well, I think for the first 52 years of my life, I did the opposite. I, as an adult, really was relentless in my self-criticism, my judgment. My role in my life was chief criticizer. And I did not have this realization about the profound power of, first of all, sort of self-acceptance, because you can't actually get to the profound power of self-love until you walk through the gates of self-acceptance.
Yeah.
And for most people, they don't even get there because the habits of self-rejection and self-criticism and self-hatred are so entrenched, and it's actually become so casual and so subconscious that you don't realize just how relentless the beatdown is in your mind. And that was me. And I remember the distinct moment that I had the breakthrough, and it was in April of 2020. And we were full on, the whole world in quarantine at this point, and my business was upside down and life was very overwhelming. And this is the day after I had first high-fived myself in the mirror. And what's interesting is that first morning in April of 2020 that I very first did the high five, a very pathetic moment in my life, one that's very relatable, standing in my bathroom, feeling beaten down and overwhelmed by the demands of life and work, and just feeling like it was all just too much and just completely defeated before I had even started the day. I caught my reflection, and I first thought when I looked at myself in the mirror, my God, you look like hell. And then, of course, the beatdown starts. Your dark circles, one boob's lower than the other. Your neck is so saggy. And then, of course, once one thought goes negative, it's like, you're just going to circle the drain. And so next thing you know, it's why'd you get up so late? You got a Zoom call in 8 minutes. You didn't text Jay back. You haven't walked the dog. Pound down, pound down, pound down. And I don't know what came over me, because you can probably tell that I'm not that cheesy of a person. I'm pretty direct. Tell it like it is. But for whatever reason, standing there that morning, feeling overwhelmed by life in my underwear, I just instinctually raised my hand and gave the woman in the mirror a high five because she looked like she needed it. And that very first morning, my reaction to just instinctually high-fiving myself was to laugh at myself because it was so cheesy. But I'll tell you something, like there was like a little switch that flipped. It's not like I was like, oh, my life has changed. I need to write a book. Here we go. Okay. Oh my God, finally I have a book title. No, that's not what happened. I just felt this energy shift where I didn't even think anything, Jay. I just felt this energy muster up that was a little bit like a teammate who, when you screw up a play and they high five you to say, shake it off, get your ass back in there. Come on now. Like it was a little bit like that. But it was the second morning that everything broke open. And so you asked a question about when was it that I learned how to see a person in the mirror that I loved. And it has not been a moment, it's been a process, but it began in a moment. That second morning, I woke up, same problems, same issues, feeling totally overwhelmed by life. And I start walking to the bathroom. And before I even get into the bathroom, I realize I'm feeling something I've never felt before in my adult life. And it was this. You know how when you are going to go meet a friend at a cafe and you really like this person and you're about to walk in the door and see somebody you like, what do you feel, Jay?
Oh, sheer excitement. Yeah, nerves and sheer excitement. Yeah.
Yeah. I felt that way about seeing myself.
Wow.
Now, I felt excitement about seeing an outfit or seeing a haircut, but I don't ever recall in my entire adult life the feeling of being excited to see the human being Mel Robbins.
Mm.
And I think that moment right there was the beginning of realizing what self-love is. And so I rounded the corner to the bathroom, and the profound nature of this is starting to unfold. And as I walk in there and I step in front of my sink and I see myself in the mirror, I have this second realization. And the second realization is there's always two people in the bathroom with you every morning.
Mm.
There's you and there's a human being in the mirror. And that human being is trying, and that human being needs you. And they are tired of your negativity, and they are tired of you criticizing everything that they're doing. And they are tired of the beatdown. And they need you to be more encouraging. They need you to be more compassionate. They need you to be more optimistic. They need you to have more fun. They need you to wake up and see them.
Mm.
And when I realized that I wasn't staring at a reflection, I was staring at my humanity. I was staring at me, this human being. Like, it shifted everything. I had this realization that, when I see one of our three kids, they're 23, 21, and 16. And yeah, there are times on a daily basis that they irritate the hell out of me. But I never, ever cast a gaze on them without just feeling this acceptance and this love for their existence. Even if they're annoying me, I still have this baseline that is grounded in acceptance. It's grounded in compassion. It's grounded in gratitude that they're in my life. It's grounded in seeing them and loving them for who they are, not trying to change, like just this pure thing. And I realized in that moment that I was experiencing that with myself. And so the high five in the mirror has become this way to demonstrate partnership with self, acceptance of self, forgiveness of self. And, I'll tell you, I started adding it into my morning routine. And the way that I did it was, when I'm done brushing my teeth, I get the gunk out of my mouth so I don't have bad breath all day. Then I stand with myself for a second. I look at myself in the eyes, and then I raise my hand. I don't even say a word, because the high five does all the work for you. I mean, the science behind this thing's bananas. That's a whole nother story we can talk about. But, I did this every day for a month. And then I ended up putting a photo up, as you read about in chapter 2. I didn't put any instructions on the photo. It's just me with my retainer in and a high five in the mirror. And within an hour, more than 100 people around the world had high fived themselves in the mirror and posted it online. And that's what made me go, oh my God, maybe I'm not the only one who feels defeated. Maybe I'm not the only one who needs a little encouragement. Maybe I'm not the only one who feels alone. Maybe I'm not the only one who feels like some days I just can't deal with the demands of my life. Maybe I'm not the only one who needs to learn how to support themselves a little bit better, be a little kinder, a little bit more encouraging. Maybe, just maybe, there's something here.
Yeah.
And so I took on a year-long research project, and the results of it are absolutely freaking extraordinary. This is the most powerful thing I have ever discovered in my entire life. The leading neuroscientists, people that have discovered neuroplasticity in the 80s, have now completely verified everything we're talking about and added in 10 times more research about why this is so groundbreaking.
And you also mentioned, I've heard you talk about Dr. Daniel Amen too, and how he's excited about this habit. And the moment I heard about this habit, I was excited too, because it's so simple. And I've often tried my best to understand this, and hopefully you can help me understand this. Why is it that people often resist something that is so simple? Is it because they feel like, because it's so simple, it's too good to be true?
I think that's the right answer. I also think that there's, the complexity bias.
Yeah.
So your brain has a complexity bias whereby if your dreams are big or your problems feel big, you naturally think the solution to either solving it or achieving the big dream must also be big and complex.
Yeah.
And what I've found in life is that, ironically, it's the opposite. The bigger the problem, the smaller the solution that makes a difference. The bigger the dream, the smaller the action that starts you going there. And so I do think that there is a immediate reaction that is that, well, this is so simple. I think there's also this sort of resignation that we all have that that's cheesy. I'm not doing that shit. Like, come on, please. And then the bigger reason why, though, that people resist it is really sad. Yeah. And the real reason why people resist this is because your habit of self-rejection is so profound and strong and relentless and habitual that high-fiving yourself is literally, it'd be like me saying, oh no, you got to eat with your feet tonight.
Yeah.
It makes no sense because, we all know, Jay, that you need to be kind to yourself. We all know that you need to treat yourself better. We've all heard a bazillion times us say, if I talk to my friends the way that, I talk to myself, or if my friends talk to me the way that I talk to them, I wouldn't be friends with them. Yeah. And you still talk to yourself that way. And the reason why so many of us are so stuck is we don't know how to be kinder to ourselves because nobody's ever taught you how.
Yeah.
We don't know how to stop the relentless criticism because nobody's ever taught us how. And it is such a strong habit that it is akin to your dominant hand. Like I could write with my left hand, but it would be such a pain because it's the opposite of what I've done my entire lifetime. And for most people, based on our research, they have spent an entire lifetime criticizing themselves.
Yeah.
It's literally, you and I speak English. It's the language that we speak. Criticism, judgment, the beatdown is the language that most people speak in their minds.
Yeah.
And so that's the other reason why most people's reaction to this is, well, that's dumb. That's not going to work. And besides, it's stupid. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. For a long time, I was one of those people that beat myself up. I thought that I didn't have worth, didn't have purpose, I didn't know that my story actually mattered. So I just would allow all the negative emotions and feelings, you name it, to just flood in my life. And that would often inform how I acted with my friends, with my family, with my work colleagues, you name it. Wasn't a good scenario. I was very angry, very upset because I felt like I wasn't going anywhere until that one day, it's a long story, Mel, but to cut it short, until everything just came crashing down. And I started to ask myself those difficult questions that many people often avoid and really started to dig deep into who is Jay? Who am I really? Like, what is my purpose? And then it's like, well, you were talking about how you had that moment of realization. I call it like the old light bulb burst and the new one was quickly put in its place. And it was like shining brightly and it finally all made sense. It's like, my story has value. I was born with a purpose. I don't have to go and continue to chase this thing. I am enough right now. And I love your message, especially because it speaks to this very thing of you do have value. You are enough and you should love yourself every single day, no matter what.
Yeah. And, I knew all that. And yet I had no idea how to do it, Jay.
Yeah.
I was on the outside. You would look at me and say, wow, that Mel Robbins is such a positive, loving person. I was to everybody else. Oh, wow, that Mel Robbins, she is wildly successful. Yeah, because I was relentlessly trying to prove to myself that I had value. I had married worth with achievement like so many of us do.
Yeah.
And we do it because when we were little, you got positive attention and praise when you did well in school, when you made the sports team. It got conditioned into you to believe that you are only worthy when you are doing something that makes you feel worthy.
Yeah.
And so we get all these mixed messages. And so I didn't know how to do those things, Jay. I would stand in the mirror, having self-published a book, selling 2 million copies and be like, it's not enough. What's next? Oh, the Audible thing's number one, not enough. And the reason why is I had not fixed the core problem that every human being struggles with. And it is self-rejection. Yeah. That is everybody's core problem. And I didn't even know how deeply of a problem it was until I discovered the high five habit and started to practice treating myself differently. Because here's the thing that is so interesting based on the research. You cannot change a habit of self-rejection and a habit of self-hatred by telling yourself you're worthy. You cannot do it by telling yourself you love yourself. And the reason why is your actions for your entire life have demonstrated the opposite. Yeah. And so your brain goes, no, you don't. You don't think you're worthy. Stop saying that crap. You don't believe that. And so your brain rejects it because it's been programmed based on your own behavior. Yeah. To believe that you don't think anything you do is good enough. You don't think you're ever good looking enough. You don't think it's ever enough money. That is what you've trained your brain to believe. And so the only thing that has ever worked for me is the high five habit. And I'll tell you why, because it's a physical action. You shouldn't say a thing when you do it because the programming is too powerful against you and your mind. And I want you, when you practice this, to leverage programming and neural associations that are already in your brain associated with cheering for everybody else. We're just going to aim it right back at you. And so the huge transformational power of this is that because most of us have either watched other people high five one another in sports or in road races, or we've watched videos of teachers high-fiving kids as they enter the classroom, or we have experienced high-fiving people that we love or high-fiving teammates, or we have experienced somebody else high-fiving us. That behavior and the positive association and the neural programming and the wiring in your nervous system is already in your body, mind, and spirit. We are just going to aim all that stuff back at your own reflection. And so what we're doing with the physical action of high-fiving the mirror is you are every single morning shutting down the critic. You are demonstrating that you see yourself and you care about yourself. And over a short period of time, based on the chemical releases in your brain, based on the nervous system wiring that gives you a celebratory jolt, and based on all the positive programming that you have in your mind already affiliated with a high five, you literally reset your default programming back to the way that you were born. Because the bottom line is, none of us came out of the womb beating the heck out of ourselves. None of us as toddlers stood in front of the mirror and were like, gosh, my thighs are fat. I better not go to kindergarten today. We were wired for love.
Yeah.
We were wired for self-acceptance. Yeah. Life taught you to hate yourself. Yeah. And I'm telling you, through the habits in this book, and by adding a high five to your morning routine, you will tap back into something that is core to who you are, which is self-love and self-acceptance.
Yeah. How does the high five habit help people that are dealing with trauma?
It's a great question. So, number one, let's talk about what happens when you do it. So how it helps with trauma is that we're going to unpack trauma at several layers. Yeah. Because trauma is obviously a stored experience in your mind, body, and spirit. Yeah. And what happens for a lot of people with trauma is that when you stand before yourself in the bathroom and you look in the mirror, a lot of people with trauma that is not been healed or is not being healed, is you see the trauma as evidence that you're damaged, that you're unlovable, that you're a bad person, that nothing's going to work out for you, that you're not good enough. And so you thereby see a person that isn't worthy of the love that you desire. It's why you're seeking it in relationships and you're seeking it outside of yourself, because internally you see the trauma not as evidence that you've survived something, which means you deserve a high five, but evidence that you're damaged so you don't. And so the high five in the mirror becomes an act of healing.
Yeah.
It becomes an act of defiance that brings your power back inside you. It becomes an act of empowerment, acknowledging how far you've come and all that you've survived, and the fact that you still love you and you still are going to have you. There was a woman that wrote to us that was in a domestic violence shelter when she saw a video that I did about the high five habit. And she said that, I've had childhood trauma, very severe, from the age of 4 till about 15. Then I left the family abusive home. I'm now in my late 20s. I've been in a wildly violent relationship. I've just escaped that. I have nothing. I know I have a lifetime of healing, but in 5 days, waking up in a domestic violence shelter, in the most traumatic experience of my life, what the high five habit is showing me is that at least I still have myself.
Yeah.
That if I could learn how to have my own back, if I can forgive myself for the mistakes I've made, if I could forgive myself for not listening to my intuition, if I could see myself, then I can heal myself. That's what it can do for trauma. The other thing that I write about in this book is, because the high five in the mirror is just the beginning, is you can practice something called high fiving your heart. This is in chapter 13. This is how you can use a high five. You put it in the center of your chest. And I want you to put it right here, because you're going to now use something that's a treasure in your body called the vagus nerve. And, as you know the vagus nerve, it's an on-off switch. It switches off your fight or flight, dysregulated, traumatized nervous system. And it flips on your resting, cool, grounded nervous system. So on those mornings where you wake up and you're spiraling, or those mornings, and mornings for a lot of people because cortisol levels are high, or it's evening and darkness triggers you. When you feel yourself get triggered, put your hands on your chest. This is called high-fiving your heart. Take a deep breath. And then just repeat these words. I'm okay.
I'm okay.
I'm safe.
I'm safe.
I'm loved.
I'm loved.
And repeat them over and over and over until you feel yourself come back into your body. And what you're going to feel as you repeat those words and you press right here in the center of your chest, activating the vagus nerve, is you're going to feel your dysregulated, triggered nervous system flip off. And you're going to feel yourself come back into your grounded body. And you're going to feel yourself take control of your body response, whether you're in a grocery store, or you're at a stoplight, or you're standing in your kitchen, or you're waking up. And in that moment, if you can hear yourself saying or thinking, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved, it's true. In that moment, you are. And even if it only gives you a few seconds, it allows you to realize that within you, you have the ability to take control of how you're feeling in any moment.
I think it's another powerful tool that we can all use, because I myself have experienced quite a bit of trauma. So I'm a morning person, get up at 4 a.m. in the morning. People say that I'm crazy, but I do it for a specific reason. And I have a philosophy in my life that if I can beat the sun, which is constant every single day, then no matter what comes my way during the day, I can beat that too. And it's setting myself up for some positive habits like exercise, like prayer and meditation, the high five habit now as well that I do. All these things, they're all in my repertoire, my toolkit for success in combating any of those horrible things that do come my way, stressful times, you name it.
What have you either learned about yourself or experienced by adding a high five in the mirror to your morning routine?
I think it's what I've noticed more recently actually is it makes me smile, number one. Number two, it makes me, like when I do those words, and at the end when I get to "you are loved," it actually makes me feel like, hang on a minute, I am loved. It puts me in that, once again, reminding state that I am loved. And it helps me whenever I'm going through like a difficult, stressful moment of the day to just stop and reflect and say, Jay, you high-five yourself in the morning. It's going to be okay. This is nothing. So that's what it's helped me do. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you loved the study in the book in chapter 2 about NBA teams, and most people love this study. But basically, if you think about it, the reason why you smile, by the way, is because anytime somebody high fives you, your brain gives you a drip of dopamine, and your brain does not know the difference between you high fiving yourself in the mirror and you high fiving me. And so, when I say the programming, you're smiling and everybody feels a lightened mood, even on the worst mornings, because your brain is giving you dopamine. The second reason why you feel more assured is because your body instinctually is wired for gestures of celebration. And so, like when you cross a finish line, what do?
High five.
Arms immediately go up, right?
Yeah.
Arms up. When you wave, arms up. When your favorite team scores, arms up. When your favorite band comes on the stage, arms up. When you surprise somebody, arms up. And so the arms up is a celebratory gesture. And so the reason why you leave the bathroom feeling a little more empowered is your nervous system just gave you some of that associative programming that gave you a jolt of vitality. Now, when we take this into the research lane, researchers looked at the NBA basketball teams here in the United States, and they were curious, researchers at Berkeley University, what is it that are the habits of the teams that have the best winningest records? And they discovered that there are habits present in the preseason that are present for all teams that are winning. And they're not present for the teams that have terrible records. And the habits were this. The teams that have the best records at the end of the season also have the most number of fist bumps, pats on the back, and high fives during the preseason. And the reason why this habit of encouraging gestures correlates to a winning record is because these aren't just gestures, they're demonstrations of trust and partnership.
Yeah.
The teams that do the worst have the least number of these. No fist bumps, no pats on the back. Everybody's in it for themselves. And you can see it because they make selfish moves, selfish plays. The team's not wired together. And I'm here to tell you that the reason why you feel that sort of carry through in your day is because the high five is creating partnership with yourself and trust within yourself. And it gets sealed in your mind. Which, you're not we've had more than 130,000 people go through a 5-day high five challenge in a matter of 26 days from 91 countries. And so many people report that throughout their day, they also can reflect back to the high five in the morning. Again, because the neural association with a high five is so pounded into everybody's brain, regardless of where you grew up, regardless of the culture that you grew up in, you have witnessed these things happening in culture. And so it's just programming that we're activating to help you. And here's what I've noticed. This is the biggest thing, everybody. And it's this. I mentioned the fact that I was such an achiever because I thought that that's what made me worthy of love. And so many of you will stand in front of the mirror and you'll feel resistant to doing this because you'll say, but I didn't go to the gym today. But I didn't get up at 4:00. I hit the snooze button. Should I still high five myself? And the answer is yes, especially on those days, because the high five isn't something you earn. It's something you deserve and need. Simply for breathing. If you can stand there and be here another day and you're still pushing forward and you're still trying and you're not getting it right, you're still trying. You not only deserve a high five just for your existence, you need one. It is the most empowering force on the planet to feel seen, to feel encouraged. And I want people to understand that when you start to practice this and demonstrate it to yourself, it not only changes how you see yourself and how you feel about yourself, it changes how you operate out there. If I like myself, it doesn't matter if you like me or not, Jay. It might sting a little bit because I want you to like me, but it won't change the fact that I still like myself. You know, if I am really treating myself with respect, I won't allow somebody else to treat me with disrespect.
Yeah.
Because I demonstrate every morning that I respect myself, and that becomes the new baseline. We let so much crap slide with other people because we don't even treat ourselves with acceptance and respect. That's why we're looking for it outside of ourselves. And, you know, one more thing that I'll say is after more than a year of doing this, I don't even need to high five myself. I still do it, but I don't need to. And I'll tell you why. It wouldn't even occur to me at this point to criticize myself. Because I don't see a body. I don't see a face. I see a human being who's trying. It is reset my brain in the most beautiful and profound way. Now, do I still get pissed off when I'm number 2 on the New York Times? Of course. But that's not pissed off at myself. And the recovery from that is almost instantaneous.
Yeah.
Because I have a new resting default that's optimistic, that's encouraging, that's compassionate. The resilience factor is through the roof. It's really unbelievable. And so for those of you that are high achievers, like it has not changed how competitive I am. It has not changed the game that I am playing. It has made me better at it. Because when you're constantly focused on what's going wrong, you're going to hate what you're doing. You're going to feel beaten down. When you can celebrate all the little wins around you and get pissed off for 2 seconds about number 2 and then move on, you have more joy, more contentment. You play a bigger game. You feel more motivated. You make a bigger impact. We have it reverse. You think that you got to have all the money in the world and then you're going to be happy and satisfied with yourself. Not true. Treat yourself with respect and encouragement now, and you will feel empowered to go do all the things that create all the wealth that you need and all the impact you want. You want to be a travel blogger, it sounds like.
Yes. Right.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Does that scare you?
Not at all. I'm pushing myself quite a lot. Even before my parents passed, I had the goal, okay, I want to make my illustration job and so on. But here's the thing.
Tell me the thing.
I'm doing this since, like I said, I mean, I draw for more years now, but I started the online business 2021. So
yeah.
And I'm not making that much income. Sometimes there are months where I'm making nothing. And that's totally fine because I'm at the beginning. I also have, that's also good to know. I have an Instagram. I have a YouTube channel. I love making videos. I'm learning so much. I started TikTok. I have my homepage. I'm writing blog posts. Mel, I also wrote a blog post about you.
Oh. I'll have to read it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question, because there's a huge theme here. You guys noticing the theme with everybody? You guys all have lots of stuff going on. And that's an important thing if you need to have a lot of stuff going on to make ends meet. And I love that you're saying that your illustrations and that store is at the very beginning of the process, and that's going to take time. That's true. But here's what I don't hear. What do you want your life to look like?
I want this to go pretty well. I want to be able, like I wrote, I want to be able to travel And my goal is to make this happen next year. And
Okay.
And
what do you mean by travel? See, the other thing I'm going to keep pointing out to everybody is that before you can figure out the plan or the map to get where you want to go, you got to pick your head up and point at what you want. And the more specific the destination, the better. It is impossible to give you great guidance and coaching if I don't know exactly what you want. Because here's the thing, if you really wanted life where you travel, I can tell you 10 travel bloggers that you should follow. You can stalk their stories, and with your skills, you could probably be making money and doing that full time in a matter of 3 to 6 months. Because there are magazines that are looking for freelancers to do that. Once you get with one hotel, they connect you with another hotel. Once you start tagging people, cafes, it is one of those things that builds. You've told me you have no debt, that you have savings, that you have a job that is 12 hours a week that is not keeping you somewhere. So what do you actually want?
I know when I do this next year. So my first goal is to go to Japan again for 3 months.
Okay.
And I know that at my part-time job, they won't let me go and say, okay, it's unpaid vacation. And when you come back here, you can start again. So I know, okay, it's kind of.
So here's what's interesting. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to push you a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Do you have, is that house that you're sitting in a place that you own that you have to pay for?
Nope, it's a flat. And it's the flat of my best friend. And I have to pay such less money.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Your whole life is organized around what's happening at this 12-hour-a-week job.
Yes, exactly.
Do you know why I'm pointing that out?
No.
We are in the single best job market in 40 years.
What was my best job?
No. This is the best job market in 40 years. People cannot find people to work.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to tell you is that you're organizing your entire life around a part-time job.
I know where you're going.
Where am I going?
Yeah, I have the exact same thought. They are
no, but where am I going? Where am I going? I'm going to push you.
There are shitty jobs out there everywhere. I can.
There's a shitty job in Japan waiting for you.
Yeah, everywhere. I know. Yeah.
Your issue is courage.
Yeah. That's fun because courage is one of my things that I'm keeping pushing myself. Okay. Yeah.
Prove it.
Yeah. That's right.
I have a feeling that you holding on to where you are has to do with grieving.
Grieving and maybe, okay, my because I have a partner and he also lives here. But I think we can maybe hopefully figure something out.
Elena?
Yeah.
Hope is for children on Christmas morning who hope that they're going to get a certain present. You are a 33-year-old brilliant woman who has taken control of her healing, who has figured out how to set up an entire business around your illustrations. You have paid off your debt. You have savings. We are no longer in a game of hope. We are in the business of creating a life that's amazing. And that begins the moment you wake up and go, what the fuck am I doing? Worried about this job. I am going to call a meeting tonight with my partner and I'm going to say, here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We are going to reinvent our lives. Fuck it. Let's figure out how to go to Japan for 3 months. Because this shitty job's going to be here. And so is this flat when we decide we don't like it. And if I burn through my savings trying to figure something out because I can't figure out how to make that work, then I'll just save more money.
Yeah.
You have nothing to lose.
I'm writing courage big on
Courage. And courage means action.
Yeah.
You're going to feel afraid, but this is the day.
No, that's normal growth.
You're not going to grow in that flat. And you're not going to grow next year. And I'm not going to allow you to wait another year.
Yeah. And this is exactly what I'm feeling. Every time I wake up, I'm doing my stuff and I'm doing quite a lot of stuff. And I wrote it also to you. Wait, let me point this out.
I saw it. I don't need this. You don't need that. I don't need this story. I don't care how much you're doing. You're doing the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
I'm fucking busy too. And for a long time, it was the wrong stuff, which is why I was miserable.
The only thing I felt, why I feel so, why I ask you if it's a naive or so, because I'm not making that much income or not at all income now. This is
Who cares? Who cares? So you're not making a lot of income, which only means if you stay in the place that you're in, you're going to stay trapped because you don't have enough income. You're not going to have enough income next year either.
Yeah.
Take a risk. Live a little. You can come back to this.
Yeah. This was exactly what I was feeling the whole time. And
I hope this is exactly what you do.
Yeah.
Because feeling it, unless it activates action, you might as well just fart because it doesn't do anything. Like it just is like, you need to get frustrated and say, I'm done with this. I am sick of myself. In fact, let's pick a date right now. What day are you going to Japan or going to another country or quitting this job? Give me the day. Let's commit publicly right now. It's March 22nd.
March or April.
Give me a date. Let's pull the calendar.
Okay, let's say April the 1st.
April 1st? Hell yes. All right, great. You're going to keep us posted on where you're doing and what your plan is.
I will.
Will you put Glow Autonomo, her account in the in Instagram? Thank you. She started travel blogging, I think 7 years ago. And really amazing woman, really good friend of mine, super inspiring.
Okay.
She'll give you tips. And I think on her YouTube channel, she's got all kinds of stuff about how to get started. She's killer.
I also haven't found an illustrator who does this because I would love to incorporate both.
Listen, I think your ideas are incredible. Go do them.
Okay.
Here's an illustration. You ready?
Yeah.
Give us an illustration of the moment that you got off your ass and quit that job. And then give us an illustration of you buying the plane ticket. And then give us an illustration of how scared you are as you see the savings go down a little. And then give us an illustration of what your partner looks like when he's like, wait, what? We're going where? And then give us an illustration of your first day in Japan.
Yeah.
And then take us on the journey with you.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. You're awesome.
Thank you.
I can't wait. What does that mean to you, Jenna?
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
So here's the thing. When I think about the question, how are you really, or how am I really? Most of us don't want to answer it because we know if we're honest and the answer is I'm not okay, or I'm not happy, or I'm not good, that then we have to do something about it. It's like we have to confront that reality, and that's what will set you free, really. And so one of the things that I think it's wrong so often in this world with so much information is that we try to go so big so fast that all of a sudden when we crash, we say, why did I ever think I could do that? Who was I to think I could follow through? Who was I to think that I could start the business or lose the weight or get healthier or seek out the relationship? And what we're forgetting is that, like, if we can start to make the smallest progress, like progress that no one can see, progress that isn't Instagrammable, progress that just simply proves to ourselves that we are actually following through, that we are actually progressing and moving forward, that we are actually capable, it's like we're strengthened. And when we're strengthened, the confidence shows up. And when we're confident, we show up in a different way. And when we show up in a different way, we change. And when we change, everything happens. And so it's like we live in a world that literally wants everything to be pretty and we want it to be showcased. It's like, imagine if you and I were sitting in Vermont and I was like, hey, Mel, let's go grab some chairs and watch this tree grow. It would be so boring, right? Nobody would do it, because on the outside, what we see, we're not seeing anything happening. But underneath the surface, those roots are strengthening and lengthening and growing and reaching and giving this growth the roots that it needs to be sustained. And so to me, it's like when we think about what are we going to do about it, we often try to go big. We go too big, and then we live in this shame cycle that we didn't follow through, that of course we weren't able to do it, when in reality, we need to make such tiny little actions. There's a quote in the book that talks from BJ Fogg where it's like, pick the most minuscule, tiny little steps to progress so that you can build up your belief in yourself. Because the way you show up to your battles is directly linked to the warrior you believe you are. And most people don't even feel like a warrior today. Most people don't even feel like they can show up to the battle. And so it's like, how do we build up our confidence through such infinitely small progress that no one else will see, but that we can feel? That's what I think is the difference.
You know, I've been working on something that I don't think anybody can see. I've started to notice after a couple years of therapy and all these big changes that I put into place, and I wasn't even aware of it. And heck, this is even like with the high five habit that, you know, I started to break through the self-criticism, and the high five habit profoundly changed how I see myself. But I still had a layer deeper, Jenna, a dialogue that I think is generational in the women in my life, of being in conflict about what's going on and simultaneously feeling grief and regret. I've been really blown away and really sad by how much I've tortured myself because I have this habit of focusing on what's wrong and focusing on what I didn't do in the past. And I live there because the women in my life, my grandmothers, my mom, like that's their kind of negative mental experience. And so I, every day, and none of you can see this, I catch myself going there.
Yeah.
I catch myself slowly torturing myself that where I am isn't the right place, that what I'm doing isn't the right thing, that, and it is robbing me of what you said, which is creating fat minutes where you can feel the full 60 seconds and be present to it. And so this is something, everybody, that I am working on every single day that nobody can see. It's sort of like when you're doing sit-ups for the first time, you're not going to see any change in the mirror for probably 8 weeks. And I think the same is true for me. And the incremental stuff that I'm doing, the what are you going to do about it? How are you really? Because the truth is, how are you really is how am I really is I'm doing all this stuff, but in here, I'm like torturing myself because of old mental habits. And I am committed to catching it and noticing it. And then all I do to break that apart, Jenna, is I try to have what you call a fat minute. I try to just go, where am I?
Yeah. Yes. It's all about awareness. What's so crazy is that for so long, I totally believed that I could never meditate. I was like, my brain doesn't work that way. I can't slow it down. I can't not think of anything. Like, I thought that meditating was like emptying your mind, when in reality, it's just having an awareness for your thoughts. And when I shifted it, I am like obsessed with meditation. Like before I went on the Today Show, I freaking meditated. I was like, who am I? Like, I don't even understand, but it's wild how much of our lives we go through without noticing, whether it's the people, the feelings, how we're really, our thoughts, our narratives, the things that we're beating ourselves up for, we go through and we just don't even notice. We don't even feel it. Like there's a chapter in my book about feeling your feelings. Like it's not about just letting happiness be the destination in our life. It's moving through life with this richness of feeling our feelings. Our feelings are communicating things to us. And so it's all about awareness. And it's like when you start to pay attention, man, your life becomes more vibrant. And that richness of the vibrancy, even the highs and the lows, it makes you feel your life. It makes you awake to it in a totally different way. I love that.
I want to just say one thing.
Do you need to pick somebody up from the airport? I'm slightly concerned here.
Yeah, I do. It's okay. She'll just start anxiety calling. And she started calling in. She's calling Chris. She asked me to track her. It's all good. We're going to go get her. Blah, blah, blah. And in the middle of the panic attack, by the way, the ember is flaming because she's like, oh, and can we stop at Java Juice and get coffee? I'm like, oh,
Deal.
okay. So here's one thing I want to say about that. Feeling your feelings can be terrifying for those of us like me who have spent a lifetime keeping themselves busy or drunk at night. Not drunk, but, buzzed, so that I didn't have to feel. Like, I think one of the reasons why when I really figured out sort of what I was passionate about, writing, coaching, speaking, that I threw myself into it is because when I was focused on something, blaming my feelings and my mind wasn't spinning. And so I've been doing everything and how are you really? And the slowing down, the getting back into my life, the being honest with myself about how the busyness was really not making me happy. And I will tell you guys that when you start to slow down and you start to truly feel what's there that you've been numbing or running away from or like arguing against, that bridge between the old you and the transition to truly like that ember inside you of how you want to feel in your life, which is in it and present to it, crossing that bridge can be terrifying, but you can do it. Mm-hmm. And so it goes back to what we started in the very beginning. There is an ember that's burning inside you, even if you feel like a burnt toast piece of grist pile of ashes. Yeah. That I hope that this conversation has fanned so that you feel it burning a little bit of yearning.
So I guess my question is, what would you tell Mel in 2007, 2006, 2005, and how would that 5-second rule, how do you think that would have changed things for you?
That is a great question, Lauren. Nobody has ever asked me that question. So, is there something big that's happening in your life that you're worried you're going to screw up?
Everything is big for me. I'm fortunate enough to own 2 salons.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have a wonderful marriage.
And by the way, hold on a second. Can we just stop right there? I'm fortunate enough to own 2 salons. Does anybody have a guess where I'm going? You work hard. You made that happen. And so I want to draw a distinction, everybody, with gratitude, okay? Really important. You need to hear me, okay? Because I have a feeling what the issue is. You're not going to like this.
I'm ready for it.
Okay, good. I know you are. That's why I'm going to go here. When you say, I'm fortunate enough, you just gave your power away. And gratitude is a wonderful thing to be able to ground you in the moment and to amplify all these positive experiences. But I want you to be very careful to give away the power of what you've created through your actions and your hard work and the fact that you show up every frickin' day and you are riding the wave called entrepreneurship and life, and you are making that happen. So you are not fortunate enough. You have done the work to have 2 amazing businesses. You got that? Okay, good. Because I think the issue is self-worth. I think that's your issue. That you don't feel worthy of the things that you have created. And so you relate to the things that you've created like it's luck and like it could be taken away. Is that hitting home? So what do you want to say about that?
I receive that. I receive that.
Oh.
I think, I mean, if I can just be human for a second, I think we all maybe struggle with a little bit of that. Am I worthy of the things that I've achieved, right? Or like that imposter syndrome, like I'm just playing a salon owner, I'm not actually the salon owner, right? But yes, thank you for that. I resonate with that for sure.
And so here's the biggest thing I want you all to take away from this, and I mean this. The fear that things could change, the fear that this is not going to continue to be successful, that's normal, and it's a big thing. But if you allow yourself to focus on this big, scary thing, you will literally lose sight of the power of all the little things. Getting the little things right is everything. So getting out of bed, moving your body, checking your attitude before you walk into your business so you don't bring any negativity in with you. The way that you greet your spouse and your kids when you walk in the door at the end of the day. The stuff you put in your mouth. The person that you listen to in your head. Get out of here, Tina, right? You focus on all those little things all day long, everybody. And the big things take care of themselves. You know how to do this. And so we want to make it more complicated than it is, everybody. It's not. When you get the little things right every day, it shows your brain and your nervous system, your mind, body, and spirit that you care about yourself. It shows you that you can rely on yourself. And it creates its own form of momentum. And I see a lot of you crying. And I know why. Because you're not actually getting the little things right. You've given up on yourself because you've gotten so focused on everybody else and taking care of everybody, all these big problems. And we have to bring it back to the basics. And so what I would have told myself when things started to feel scary is I would have said, bitch, you got to get out of bed. You got to stop barking about what Chris is doing. And you got to cheer for the man. You got to stop griping in your mind and letting your own negative voice come in. And you got to fight to get the little things right. And what's coming up for you?
Is that a question? What's coming up for me?
Yeah, because I just saw you.
Man, I appreciate the little things. I think that's the focus for me. And I also know that we have big plans, big changes, big things that we want to do, creating a national brand.
Amazing.
Elevating the industry, right? Excellence in the industry, creating a voice for stylists, for artists. But it's like, is that dream real? I don't know.
You tell me.
I want it to be.
Okay, prove it.
Yeah.
And how do you make a big dream come true, everybody? So this is amazing. You're going to use this whole body of research called behavioral activation therapy, which is literally a fancy pants way to say, act like the person that has built a national brand. Now. Act like the person you want to be now. And there's a simple way to figure this out. Take out a piece of paper, draw a line in the middle of it. Describe the person that you want to be. So a person with a big national brand doing what do they do every day?
They get up early.
Yep.
All the time. They center themselves, right? They create objectives for the day. They affirm their self-worth, affirm their goals. They start out, with a nutritious meal, activity, going deep into work, and that's all before the family even makes up, right? So
Correct.
that's the person I want to be.
Yes. How many people want to be that person? Yeah, we're like, oh my God, that's the right person. Yeah, ha, 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 ha. And then the alarm rings. And the voice in your head starts barking. And the weight in your body hits. And you feel so far away in your comfy bed from that huge dream that you have. And we all know this feeling, because this is what we all feel every single morning. It is the pull, everybody, of what you're meant to do. And I'm going to warn you, your dreams don't die, they haunt you unless you're taking action toward them. They do not leave you. You have been dreaming about the same shit since you were little. It's not going anywhere. It keeps getting more painful because you can just and you see other people doing it, they're not even as nice as you. That pull is trying to get you to wake up and pay attention. Stop sleepwalking through your life. There's something more important than being comfortable in that bed. It is tapping into the power in you to serve, to create something that blows your mind. And so, yes, that's true. And so there's a couple other things I'm going to tell you. Give yourself a 5-year timeline. Because the things that y'all would take on, if you knew it was going to take 5 to 10 years, it would be bigger than what you're taking on now. And that also kind of relieves the pressure, because some days you're going to wake up and have this amazing morning, and some days the kids are going to, and the dog's going to be barfing on the floor, and you're like, literally, it's not going to work. And so it is a long game. And the other thing that I'm going to tell all of you that want to expand, because how many of you want to expand your businesses or grow a bigger brand or do all this stuff? You have to hire somebody before you're ready. You have to replace yourself. So once you understand what all the little things are that you got to get right in your business every day, from the time that the doors open to what the morning meeting looks like, to the type of energy that you want, to the playlist that's there, to when the counters get wiped down, to who's cleaning the bathroom, to all of that stuff, you got to hire somebody to replace you. Because now that you know what all the little things are, you need somebody to do that so you can free up time and capacity to work on the bigger things that are calling you. Because otherwise you're going to start to resent your business because you're busy doing all the stuff you shouldn't be doing anymore. And that's keeping you from being able to focus on the bigger things. This was me for a long time in our business, that I was so busy kind of running around and doing all this stuff that I wasn't able to focus on the bigger thing. You got this. You got this. I love you. All right, who's next?
One of the things that struck me was this idea of willpower versus skills, because, we think it's willpower that's going to take us to the change and, in so many different ways and really change our lives. And could you speak a little bit about that? What does that mean?
Yeah, we've all bought into this myth that you have to have discipline, or that you have to have this like mental strength, that you have to, if you're not born being somebody that can push through all the excuses and fears that hold you back, if you can't run 10 miles or get through a Navy SEAL circuit training thing, that somehow you're weak, you're undisciplined, and it's just not true. Most of us have a particular tank for willpower. So, I've got this glass of water right here, and let's just say that this entire glass is your capacity, your energy, your focus and your attention to be able to push yourself to do something. That's basically willpower. Willpower is the ability to will yourself forward, to have your will power your actions and your focus. And the truth is, most of us have a limited capacity for how long we can do that. When you use up all the fuel that's in this cup, you got no more willpower. It's one of the reasons why one of the simple things that people recommend is get rid of do the hard thing in the morning first. That your brain has the most fuel in the tank first thing in the morning. You have the most ability to power through things and focus and push yourself to do things first thing in the morning. And as you put your attention on this task, or you start working on emails, or you start scrolling on social media, or you start running errands, this tank is going to start to drain. Here we go. We're losing a little willpower because I just put focus on something. And so it's one of the reasons why it's so hard to exercise at the end of the day. The tank is empty. It's one of the reasons why it's so hard to work on your passion project at night when you've been working a full-time job during the day. Your tank is empty. And so a lot of us have been relying on willpower alone. And when we have a tank that's depleted or empty, we think we failed. We think, oh, we're not disciplined enough. The truth is, you can develop skills. And one skill that you can develop is that even though the tank feels empty, you can develop the skill to focus for 5 minutes on something you don't feel like doing. Even though your will, your motivation, your inspiration to get to the gym at the end of the day feels empty, that's willpower. You can develop a skill of pushing yourself to do it anyway. And when you realize that any change that you want to make, whether it's learning how to cook healthy, that you have been such an incredible gift in inspiring so many people and helping them through the overwhelm and the intimidation factor of trying to create healthier habits and learn your way around a kitchen. If you didn't grow up learning how to do that, you can develop that skill. You can develop the skill of pushing yourself to exercise every day, even though you don't feel like it. You can develop a skill of saying no. You can develop a skill of understanding the stock market. And when you realize that change is about systems and it's about skills that you practice. It's not about willpower. You can hack willpower. You can hack motivation when you create systems to help you hack it and when you focus on the skills you need to build so that you can take the actions that create the change.
And then what are some of the, let's say, okay, working out is a problem for somebody. What are some of the things that you can do to really hack that skill so that you do it?
Right. Okay. So the skill when it comes to working out consistently is the ability to make yourself do it. Okay. It doesn't mean you have to like it, by the way. Doesn't mean you have to feel motivated. Doesn't mean that you have to enjoy it while you're doing it. It is a skill to push yourself to do something that you don't enjoy. And that's a really important skill to develop in life. Okay. So let's talk first about systems, because I think systems are really important. What is a system? A system is a series of practices or triggers or repeatable behaviors that you put in place to make the thing you need to do easier. In the case of exercising, I'm going to give you a bunch of systems that you can put in place, okay? And this way you don't have to rely on willpower and you don't have to rely on remembering to do it, because you're going to create systems that remind you that you said you were going to exercise. So system number one, before you go to bed at night, lay out your exercise clothes on the floor of your closet. That is a simple system that is going to help you develop the skill of making yourself exercise. Now, why is this a simple system? Well, because when you walk into your closet in the morning, the last thing you're going to feel like doing is exercising. When you see your yoga tights or your running shorts or your gym clothes lying there on the floor, if you're like me, you're going to be like, I don't want to do this. But having them on the floor triggers you to remember this promise that you made, that this is something that you care about because you want to take care of your body. Pull on the clothes. We're not even exercising yet. Just pull on the clothes. What's another system that you can create? You can set an alarm in your phone to go off. And it can be funny. Stop bitching and procrastinating and get to the gym. Another system that you can create, you can ask a buddy to do this with you and set a date to go for a walk. Another system that you can make, instead of trying to get an hour, you can shrink the amount of time and you can figure out it's 15 minutes of walking or 15 minutes of watching a certain tape in order to get it done. Those simple systems, I lay out my clothes at night. I pull them on no matter how I feel. I meet a friend. I shrink the time. I put an alarm in my phone. Those are all things that help you develop the skill of exercising and moving your body every day. There are other things that you can use as well. Number one, you could use the 5-second rule, which is the mind hack and the hack for motivation that I'm best known for. When you've got those exercise clothes on and you're about to nurse your third cup of coffee as a way to procrastinate getting out the door, use the 5-second rule, count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, interrupt yourself, and then move. Push yourself to do what you said you would do. Interrupting bad behavior and pushing yourself, redirecting yourself, reparenting yourself, whatever word you want to do, that's a skill. Using this countdown technique, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it's a tool you can use to teach yourself how to get better at pushing through your excuses and making yourself do things.
And why is it especially important for us to, show up for ourselves? Like if we make a commitment, like I want to use my phone less or whatever, just talk a little bit about that importance of just keeping the commitment to ourselves.
Well, here's actually what I'm curious about. What did you learn about why that's important?
Well, sort of my takeaway is just that I keep my commitments to everybody else, but I am often, or I have been in the past, often it comes to Terry last. And one of the things that I just really embraced was putting myself first, having filling my own tank, whether it's, making my bed or drinking my water or doing my red light or getting out and doing my 1,000 steps. Soon after I did the course, I decided at a certain point, okay, I've been really wanting to lose weight. It's been really hard for me, menopausal, going through all this. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to tackle it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure out the hack for myself. It's overwhelming, but I'm getting in there and I'm going to learn about it. And I can take my time and become an expert on something I know nothing about. And
amazing.
And I've had some real success. I mean, in the last, it used to be like I would lose like, quarter of a pound, a half pound a week. I've lost over 15 pounds. And I found some hacks that work for me. So that's one of the things that's like, I really want to make the commitment to myself, and I want to be as good at doing it for myself as others. That's one of the things that I learned, but I think you say it better than I do.
Well, no, not necessarily. So, first of all, that's incredible. And I want to unpack what you're talking about. So I think most of us have an experience, especially as women, where we feel and know that we are last on our own lists. That if we tell somebody else we're going to do something, we will be there. But when we promise ourselves we're not going to have a drink tonight, or we're going to get up tomorrow morning early and journal or go for a walk, or we're going to lose weight and stick to some healthy goals because we know we deserve to feel better, we abandon those promises over and over and over again. And one of the things that I've come to learn about myself and that I've come to learn about human behavior in general is the reason why we women do that is because we've been trained to. And we don't even need to go into it, but anybody that was raised in a household in a traditional gender sense who saw behavior modeled for them around being a good daughter or watching your mom tirelessly take care of your grandparents or her partner or her friends, watch her be exhausted, you start to learn that pattern yourself. You start to learn that people like you and they love you more when you behave and when you take care of them. And so we do more and more and more of it. And there's substantial research in every aspect of a woman's life that this is true. It's also true in your job. You probably are the caretaker at work. You bring in the cupcakes for birthdays. You're picking up after the meetings. And we're not being asked to. It's how we've been trained to develop worth. If somebody else is happy with me, then I can be happy with myself. As long as I'm not disappointing somebody, then I'm okay. And what I really had a breakthrough around for myself, and especially as a businesswoman, and learning how to create better deals, ask for my value, learning how to not feel guilty about going after my dreams and how that might impact my kids in some way, I had a huge breakthrough when I realized that the foundation to success and happiness and fulfillment begins with your relationship with yourself. And for women in particular, we have to it's not even retrain ourselves because we were never taught how to put ourselves first. We have to teach ourselves that it's not only important, it is crucial that you learn how to show up for yourself. And so what does that actually mean? What that means is that when you make a promise, as simple as a promise that says, I'm not going to have a glass of wine tonight, that you develop the skill and you put systems in place that support you in keeping that promise. That when you say you're going to get out of bed in the morning because you know you feel much better if you take a half an hour for yourself, that you get your ass out of bed in the morning. Why? Because you said you would. And so when you develop skills of keeping simple promises to yourself, what you're doing is you're building a habit of putting your word first. You're putting you're putting into practice via your behavior that what you say to yourself in terms of what you're promising that you would do, that it matters to you. And you have to do that because otherwise, if we don't learn how to do that for ourselves, what happens for most women is we get into these issues with relationships where I don't know if you ever had this issue, but geez, Louise, it seems like every relationship I had until I met Chris, and then this was even an issue in the beginning of our marriage, I literally lost my identity. I would take on every musical taste, food taste. I would get absorbed into my boyfriend's friend group. I became defined by whether or not I was in a relationship to someone else. They came first. Their interests came first. And the biggest breakthrough in your life and in your business will happen when you learn how to have that relationship with yourself,
right?
Where you learn how to put your needs first. And until you learn how to do that, and it's practiced by keeping the little promises to yourself, Not drinking the glass of wine, if that's what you said. Exercising or walking the dog, if that's what you said. Getting out of bed when the alarm rings, if that's what you said you would do. And most of us can't even do that, which is why we know we can't count on ourselves to do the big things. I want to start with a particular post that you put on social media that went crazy viral, and it really struck a nerve for me. And you posted this thing where you said, at 32 years old, I realized I was a child in an adult body. And this just hit deep for so many people. What did you mean?
Thank you for calling out that post. I think, for a lot of us that can be really challenging to hear that about ourselves. And for me, if I'm speaking honestly, it was very challenging to come to that awareness. And what I met was mainly around my emotions and the way that I hadn't learned, of course, in early childhood, to tolerate, to navigate, to be able to process my emotions. And in many ways, and I use this language, I think this is the part that becomes difficult, is in a lot of ways, I was very emotionally immature in the way that I handled the frustrations, the difficulties, and the stresses of life. Because the reality for me, as I think is the case, which is I think why it resonates with so many of us, is that so few of us, for many different reasons, which I'm sure we'll dive into many of which today, we didn't have those safe environments. We didn't have those emotionally attuned caregivers who themselves learned how to navigate their own emotions. So, I mean, needless to say, parenting is a large task in and of itself. And, when we don't have that safety and when we don't have someone modeling, mirroring, attuning to us emotionally, what we do then appear is like a child in an adult body.
I want to take a step back because for those of you who have not read Dr. Nicole's New York Times #1 best-selling book, which is a game changer, How to Do the Work, or you don't follow her online like millions and millions and millions of people do, can you tell everybody what your life looked like at the age of 32? Because, when you talk about emotional immaturity, it's not like you were running down the street naked, taking a baseball bat to the side of a wall, like kind of rambling gobbledygook. You were high functioning and successful. So we just give everybody, like, what does life for Dr. Nicole at 32 look like when you have this realization that, holy shit, I can't process my emotions maturely?
Yeah. And I'll be the first to say I wasn't able to even admit that or even have that language for what was going on at the time. What I did know was that I had finally arrived, or so I thought, to the end of all of this, achievement-based to-do list. To speak to your point, I wasn't, kind of dysfunctional in the very traditional sense. In a lot of ways, I had the successful, life, or at least appearance of life around me. I was in a partnership, a committed partnership. I had a successful practice after achieving my PhD. I was surrounded by, a network of supportive individuals. I was living in the city that I chose to live in. Everything seemingly on the outside, right, was reflecting this idea that I should feel good, or at least better than I was. So I think, as a lot of us do, my first feeling was a really low, disempowered, lack of fulfillment and shame. Because again, as I looked around, I kept almost telling myself, well, what is wrong with you, Nicole? Why aren't you, feeling good about yourself? Why aren't you feeling fulfilled? Why aren't you feeling even connected to this life that you created? So not having the awareness of why I was struggling right alongside with, at that point, the clients that I had been working with week after week, month after month, I wondering, feeling as a disempowered then clinician in the room, what is wrong? Why are so many of us stuck? Those of us who even have access to supportive individuals like myself in a therapeutic environment, why is the report I'm getting week after week not that I'm getting better, but that I'm getting more and more frustrated, more and more shameful, more and more stuck in these patterns? And for me, it really began with exploring, what is keeping so many of us stuck. And for me, I landed on the answer being all of the conditioning, oftentimes very stress-based, very trauma-based conditioning that, was emblematic of the childhoods that most of us have grown up in, that were creating habits and patterns that no matter how much insight, how much awareness that we had, were keeping us disconnected from ourselves, from our life, and from our relationships.
So as you are talking and somebody's listening intently, going, wait a minute, is there a different way to experience life? Because adulthood, it's so familiar sounding that you check all the boxes. Ivy League degree, you're practicing psychologist, you are successful on the outside, you're surrounded by all these people, and you're having this internal crisis and disconnect where you're going, why am I not happy? What is wrong with me? What more could there be? How can I not figure this out? I am sure most everybody listening can relate to this. And so we're going to get into what you did. But if somebody is going, that's me right now. What is something, Dr. Nicole, that you want to tell them right now about what this means if you're experiencing this disconnection from what your life is like today and what you're feeling inside?
I speaking from the perspective of having been that person. I mean, as I, was entering my 30s, I convinced myself, because I too saw similar, complaints. I heard similar complaints, and I almost gaslit myself in a lot of ways with this idea, like you're sharing, Mel, of this must be just what adulthood is. This might just be the circumstances of the, environments, very unnatural. I was living in a city myself that many of us are living. And it took me, becoming conscious again of the very real impact of these habits and patterns to create just that little bit of space. So what I want to offer to anyone who's resonating and has that embedded belief that this is just what life is about, or maybe, a more problematic belief, I think, for ourselves is maybe this is just what my life is meant to be about. Maybe there's something inherently wrong with me, that is translating to this lack of fulfillment, this overwhelming stress, or whatever it might be for you. And so very much speaking from that person as well, I thought that something was just, off about me. I want to share, the hope of creating that space of really, and you'll often hear me break down, as far as I see the process of creating change, into two major steps. And the first step I will always note is becoming conscious. And when we become conscious of how habitual, how patterned we are as individuals, then some of us can gift us with that little bit of space that then allows us to take that next step, which is beginning to make new choices outside of those old ingrained habits, to then be able to experience ourselves differently. And I'm really being intentional with that, because again, I think the best shifting of beliefs is when we ourselves begin to create change, begin to experience life differently. Many of us, I'm sure, have listened to motivational speakers who have said, oh, you can do this, come on this side of life, of change. And it really isn't. And again, speaking from my own experience of this, we don't believe it until we do it. But when we do become conscious, or as we begin to become conscious, we can gift ourselves with that space. Of course, does not happen overnight, but over time, we can begin to then make new choices, relieving ourselves of that shame, that belief that this is just what life is all about, and or this is what my life is all about.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I love you so much. Not only because you've made a huge difference in my life, and I'm going to try to take a highlighter and call out a couple of those things that you have said that were complete paradigm shifters for me and helped me achieve level up moments in my own healing. And so I want to I want to make sure everybody heard something, which is even the awareness that you feel stuck, even the awareness that something is off, even the awareness that this isn't working is great news. Because if I'm hearing you correctly, being frustrated or feeling discombobulated in your body about your life, that is the consciousness that you're talking about?
Yes, 100%. I mean, anything that we can attune to feeling even the lack of, because I know for a lot of us, we feel numb. For me, that was very much part of my journey, is feeling apathetic, not actually feeling much of anything. Though, to speak to your, very beautiful celebration of that awareness, the moment we start to say, okay, I don't feel anything, or I feel so depressed, or whatever it is that I do feel, when I am able to see or witness, that's what consciousness means for me, and honestly acknowledge that that's the case for my circumstances, then we are actually beginning the process of creating change.
Yeah, this is going on right now in real time in my life, because we were just having dinner last night for my husband's birthday, and our daughter has asked my husband, when do you feel most alive? What experiences make you feel most alive? And after Chris answered, I turned to her and I said, I've heard you say that word alive a number of times. Where is that coming from? And she said, well, it's because I don't feel that alive in my life right now. And I think when you have those insights, you're right to go, I was celebratory because I'm trying to highlight the fact that most of us react to that insight that, holy shit, I don't feel excited by my life. I don't feel like myself. I don't feel alive. It's scary when you have that moment of consciousness.
It's incredibly scary, feeling, as many of us do when we're on that blind autopilot, especially if our autopilot is driven by a state of nervous system disconnection. I often connect many of the conversations, many of the habits and patterns that we're beginning to talk about now back to our physiological body. And there actually is a state of shutdown that many of us, I found myself living in, that created, and it wasn't to say like we were going back to the beginning, right? I was still marching through life, checking endless boxes of to-do list. It wasn't that I was apathetic sitting on a couch, though. For some of us, that's how it presents. We don't feel motivated. We procrastinate. We actually can't get up and do much of anything, though some of us are still able to continue to literally just live life going through the motions. And our emotions are what makes us a human. So feeling very much, I talk about my spaceship that I was living on, the spaceship of disconnection that again began for me in childhood, does create this feeling, this embodied existence of living like a robot. So when we rob ourselves of our emotional experience of life, we're robbing ourselves, in my opinion, of life itself. But again, as often is the case, there are reasons embedded in our mind and our body that have created that experience, even of that distance, that disconnect, that apathy, that lack of motivation, that procrastination, whatever it is, that isn't a reflection of who you really are, what is meant for you in life, but again, is an adaptive coping mechanism, usually around your earliest environments or circumstances.
Wow. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe, because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you, so make sure you subscribe. Mwah.